Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring a concept I've been really intrigued by lately. It's about how these seemingly simple, maybe even counterintuitive actions might actually shortcut the path to feeling well informed and confident. We're looking at something called the high five habit, and I'm really keen to unpack, why it seems to be so powerful. So, our mission for this deep dive is basically to understand why we so often sabotage ourselves, almost unconsciously sometimes, right? And how this simple act, backed by some truly fascinating science, can completely flip that script. We're going to dive into how you can maybe move forward with surprising clarity and power. I promise you, we've got some unique insights and some incredibly relatable stories coming your way.
Absolutely. And what's particularly rich in the source material we looked at isn't just the compelling personal anecdotes, which are great, but also the scientific explanations. They give us a really holistic view of building self-worth from the inside out. So the goal today is for you to walk away understanding not just what to do, but really why these practices profoundly matter for, your daily life and hitting those long-term goals.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We've all been there, haven't we? That feeling of being just utterly overwhelmed, where all you want is just a frickin' break, A moment of peace from life's constant demands. Our sources describe it so vividly. The stress feels nonstop, you're busy taking care of everyone and everything else, and then it hits you who's taking care of you. And that kind of sustained pressure, when the demands just pile up and your attitude starts to, well, tank,
Mm.
it can create a real downward spiral.
It really can.
Yeah. And here's a core problem our sources highlight, something I found really striking. We are so quick to celebrate and encourage other people. We high five strangers, friends, teammates. It's almost second nature. But when it comes to ourselves, we fall seriously short. Like
Yeah.
really short. In fact, we often do the exact opposite, don't we?
Hmm.
We trash ourselves, we pick ourselves apart in the mirror, we tear ourselves down, and we actively argue against our own goals and dreams. It's such a common, damaging pattern. But why do we do that?
That's such a fundamental question. And the sources, they really pinpoint a significant factor, our early life experiences. Think about it. When difficult or maybe traumatic things happen to a child, they just don't have the life experience or, the mature support system to process it externally. So instead, they often turn it back on themselves. They assume it's my fault. It doesn't matter if it's something awful like childhood molestation or relentless bullying. Even unintentional messages from parents may be subtly sending the signal that there's something wrong with who you are. Children internalize these things, and it really shapes their self-perception for years to come.
Wow, that makes so much sense, that early internalization. And it really brings to mind that subtle, almost unconscious way we criticize ourselves, like what the sources call the mirror face
Yeah.
phenomenon.
Yes, exactly.
Who hasn't caught themselves doing that little fix in the mirror? It's like our face has its own built-in photo editor, instantly scanning for what we need to, quotation marks, fix. We're subconsciously trying to look better, but it's really an almost unconscious act of self-rejection. We're always looking for what's wrong first.
And this tendency is just so pervasive. There's research cited in the sources that reveals that approximately, get this, 91% of women are unhappy with their bodies. 91%. That statistic really underscores how this constant media bombardment plus our internal focus on perceived flaws contributes to this deep feeling that something is wrong with you.
Mm.
And this internal self-criticism, it's the absolute opposite of a high five. It truly is self-rejection.
So, okay, how do we begin to flip that script? How do we break that pattern? The sources present an immediate daily antidote, starting every single day by giving yourself a high five in the mirror. It's not just some abstract idea. It's presented as a habit you actually need to learn, understand, and importantly, practice every single day. And the simplicity is absolutely key here. You don't have to say a single thing. The sheer physical act of the high five itself, well, it communicates celebration and belief. It's powerful even in its silence.
Exactly. And this physical act is remarkably powerful because, as the sources explain it, it sort of bypasses that mental rejection that often happens with, say, unbelieved mantras. If you try to force yourself to say, I love myself, but deep down you don't truly believe it, your mind might just find reasons to reject that statement. It feels false. A high five, though, that leverages a lifetime of positive association. Think about all the times you've given or received one celebrating success with strangers, friends, teammates. It's a physical act of joining in with yourself, acknowledging yourself, trusting yourself. And the sources suggest this simple action will change the patterns stored deep in your subconscious, the ones that relate to you.
Okay, I love that. It bypasses the cynical brain bit.
Right. Let's delve into the science behind why this actually works to rewire your brain. Your brain has this filter, a bouncer, if you will, called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS for short. This incredible system processes just an astonishing amount of data every single day, like 34 gigabytes worth, apparently, and it actively blocks about 99% of what's around you from even reaching your conscious mind.
Yeah.
I mean, without it, you'd just be completely overwhelmed by information overload. Couldn't
Oh,
function.
wow. 99%. That's amazing.
It is. So how does this bouncer decide what gets through the velvet rope? It filters for whatever your RES thinks is important to you. And that means essentially whatever thought you repeat or topic you consistently focus on. Your repeated thoughts basically tell your RES what to prioritize, what to let in.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Think about that vivid red Acura analogy the sources use. If you suddenly decide you want to buy red Acura, what
You
happens?
see them everywhere.
Exactly. Suddenly you start seeing red Acuras everywhere. There were always there, obviously, but your RAS wasn't filtering for them before. The moment you focus on it, bam, your RAS changes its filter settings. And it's precisely the same with negative self-talk. When you repeat negative thoughts to yourself, your RAS believes, this must be important, and it will actively scan your environment for evidence to confirm thoughts like, I look disgusting or I hate my body. It actively shows you more of what you focus on, reinforcing the negativity.
Which means the crucial implication is crystal clear. Retraining your RAS to get out of that pattern of self-degradation, well, it begins in the bathroom mirror every single morning.
hmm
What you say or even just silently affirm to that person looking back at you truly matters
Yeah.
because your RAS is always watching and listening.
Okay, this leads us perfectly to a powerful strategy the sources call flip it. It's for changing those ingrained limiting beliefs. So, if your current belief is something like, I screw everything up, I am a failure, the flip it version becomes something much more constructive, like, I forgive myself for the things I did when I was just trying to survive. Every day I am becoming a better version of myself. It's about consciously, deliberately changing the story you tell yourself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because when you change the story you tell yourself, you literally change how your RAS filters the world around you. And this allows you to start seeing different solutions, maybe new opportunities, possibilities that you simply hadn't noticed before, which, can make all the difference.
Okay, this is powerful stuff. Now, let's dive into how this high five habit can help address some very specific emotional blocks that keep so many of us stuck. Let's start with jealousy. Often jealousy feels, well, unseemly, doesn't it? Petty, wrong. We're told not to be jealous. But our sources offer a truly fascinating new perspective. They suggest jealousy isn't actually a flaw, it's more like your personal GPS, pointing directly to what your deepest self desires. So instead of suppressing it, the idea is to decode it.
Exactly. It's a signal.
Yeah.
And often it's built on this false premise that success is scarce, right? Many of us subconsciously believe that success, happiness, and love are in limited supply, like there's only so much to go around. But the sources powerfully challenge this. They argue that these things are actually limitless, and they are for everyone. Once you truly start to grasp that, maybe internalize it, it can really loosen the grip of jealousy and inspire you to work toward your own version of whatever it is you desire. Your envy isn't a sign of lack, it's potentially a blueprint for your next move.
Right. So the flip it for jealousy is really powerful. If your current limiting belief is, well, if somebody else has it, I can't, you flip it to, their success is just proof that I can have it too. It reframes everything.
That's a profound shift, isn't it? Turning towards that feeling of jealousy, even though it's uncomfortable, might actually be the fastest way to figure out what you truly want. If you're feeling that familiar, maybe slightly catty feeling when you see someone else's success online or whatever, it probably means you want something similar for yourself, and you're just feeling blocked by self-doubt.
Okay, let's unpack the next big one. Guilt. Oh boy, this is a big one. Especially as the sources note, for women where it can be 1,000 times worse apparently, often rooted in how we were raised. There's a very relatable story in our sources about struggling with a family heirloom, this antique pool table, that just sat in an office for 2 whole years. Why? Because of the immense guilt about saying no to a beloved parent, even though it's taking up critical workspace. That feeling is so familiar.
Yes, it is. And the sources make a useful distinction between productive guilt and destructive guilt. Productive guilt, can actually lead to positive change. It helps you care deeply about your impact on others, motivates apologies or amends. But destructive guilt, which is often self-imposed, leaves you feeling responsible for things that aren't truly your burden to carry. It makes you feel like a doormat, constantly putting others' needs way ahead of your own.
And here's a really powerful shift suggested in the sources. Stop saying you're sorry all the time. Start saying thank you instead. Think about it. saying I'm sorry over and over when it's not really warranted. It can actually be a bit annoying, right? Because it often makes it all about you, seeking reassurance. It's often a manifestation of guilt, not genuine regret.
That's a great point.
But when you switch to thank you acknowledge the other person's support, their love, their patience, which is, in a way, a high five to them and to yourself. It shifts the focus. Constant apologies can signal insecurity. Replacing I'm sorry I'm late with thank you for your patience, or instead of saying sorry for traveling for work, acknowledging family by saying something like thank you for your love and support, it's the reason I can do what I do, it changes the dynamic.
And again, this ties right back to your RAS. Keep repeating that story to yourself, that you're the world's worst mother or daughter or employee or whatever. And your RAS will start showing you all kinds of evidence for why that's true. That filter confirms your negative self-talk. The sources really emphasize that guilt contracts and love expands. Choosing love, choosing gratitude means seeing possibilities, not just focusing on sacrifices or shortcomings.
Okay, next up. Seeking external validation. That pervasive, almost lifelong question of, but do you like me? It starts early, doesn't it? The sources highlight how we develop this habit of fitting in, starting way back in middle school and often carrying right through into adulthood, frequently at the profound cost of self-acceptance. We decide, somewhere along the line, that you'd rather fit in than actually be yourself, whether it's subtle things like code switching at work, or that intense anxiety over choosing the perfect prom dress back in the day. It's exhausting.
It absolutely is exhausting. And what truly stands out here is the critical question the sources urge us to ask ourselves instead. Do I like it? Not, will they like this? Now, it's natural to care about what others think. Of course it is. We're social creatures. But as the sources point out, it doesn't mean that you have to listen to those opinions or let them dictate your choices. The goal really is to learn how to honor your own feelings, your own taste, your own choices more than anyone else's.
Yeah, there's a great personal story in the sources about this. It was about being a life coach way back in 2001 when nobody knew what that was. And when someone asked what the heck is a life coach, the reaction was just freeze, feeling judged, projecting insecurity, thinking, oh God, he thinks it's stupid.
Right.
But the surprising outcome, that person who asked the question became her very first paying client. It's just incredible how much of that perceived judgment was purely internal.
It's such a perfect example of how it's often just in your head, not theirs. Whatever negative crap you think about yourself, you tend to project that onto others, assuming they must think that same thing about you too.
Right.
You're often your own harshest critic projecting it outwards.
So true. So the flip it for needing external validation is pretty clear. If your default thought is, what will everyone think? You flip it to, my happiness is more important than what anyone else thinks about it. And we hear Catherine's powerful story, too, about leaving an unhappy marriage in Ireland. She had to battle immense familial and societal judgment, huge pressure. But ultimately, she found freedom, happiness, and most importantly, the rock-solid confidence of knowing you put yourself first. That's inspiring.
It really is.
Okay, let's move on to something I think almost everyone grapples with at times. Anxiety and that feeling of, I can't handle this. This is something so many of us can relate to, right? Especially during major life disruptions like the COVID pandemic was for so many. A time when our usual coping mechanisms like distraction or relying heavily on others suddenly just disappeared. The sources describe that feeling so well, waking up with that awful hollow stomach feeling, maybe a pounding heart, just gripped by dread before the day even starts.
Yeah. That's a tough place to be. And the sources introduce a really profound, yet simple and scientifically backed soothing technique for exactly that moment. It's simply placing your hand flat on your heart and repeating, silently or aloud, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved.
And on the heart, okay.
And the science behind it is truly compelling. This simple action, the physical touch and the words, actually activates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is like this superhighway between your brain and your gut, and it directly influences your heart rate, your breathing, your whole stress response system. So activating it sends an immediate calm signal throughout your entire system. It literally begins retraining your body's nervous system to settle down, to switch into that rest and relax mode. We hear about a woman named Maria who used this method every morning to overcome daily anxiety stemming from past traumas. She apparently experienced a major shift from the very first time she tried it.
Wow, that's amazing. So the flip it for feeling overwhelmed is incredibly direct and powerful. If your immediate thought is, I can't handle this, you flip it right then and there to, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, and place your hand on your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Simple, but potentially transformative.
Okay, finally, let's tackle procrastination and overthinking. That familiar old song, How About I Start Tomorrow? This is where so many amazing dreams just stay. Well, dreams. Because we get paralyzed by the fear of starting or stuck in endless analysis. There's a great story shared about a guy named Eduardo, an Uber driver who had this dream of moving to California, but he kept putting it off with these really vague timelines, like, oh, maybe in a year or two. It never felt real.
Right, always someday.
Yeah. But then he was challenged to set a firm deadline, October 1. Just putting that date on the calendar, that specificity apparently made all the difference. It became real.
And this highlights the immense power of setting an actual deadline. The sources explain that it literally yanks the goal out of the fuzzy realm of your mind and plants it firmly in the physical world. This then activates something called the Zeigarnik effect, which is basically like a mental checklist. Your brain holds on to that incomplete task, reminding you of it, until it's done. The deadline creates that necessary tension.
A mental checklist. I like that. And beyond just the deadline, the sources also encourage taking micro actions. You don't have to do everything at once. And building a runway, giving yourself time to prepare, gather resources, whatever you need to gain momentum. You don't have to rip the Band-Aid off immediately if that feels too scary. Small steps count.
Absolutely. And this brings up that common fear. What about failure? What if I try and it doesn't work out? The sources are really crystal clear on this point. Failure, they argue, is what happens when you give up. It's not what happens when you stumble or make mistakes or things don't go according to plan. Every misstep is just feedback, a lesson learned. The only thing that truly matters in your life, ultimately, is the actions you're taking. Consistent action, even small action, is what builds belief in yourself.
That's a great reminder. So we've explored how these daily habits can tackle specific, immediate emotional blocks like procrastination or anxiety. But what about the bigger picture? The long game. How do these micro-actions build into a powerful long-term shift in how we see the world and maybe achieve our biggest goals? This leads us into thinking about the long game, and there's this playful way suggested to keep your RAS on your side. It's about looking for naturally occurring heart shapes out in the world. A leaf, a cloud, a pattern in the pavement. It sounds maybe a bit silly.
A little bit, yeah.
But it's presented as a deliberate way to train your mental flexibility and open-mindedness. It gets your brain actively looking for patterns, for connection, for good things, essentially tuning your RAS to possibility.
Raining the filter.
Exactly. And that kind of openness leads into a truly compelling decade-long story from the sources about manifesting the painting. It began with a strong, almost inexplicable desire for a specific landscape painting seen in college. That desire just lodged itself in the subconscious. Years passed, life happened, and then through a whole series of what seems like coincidences, a sister painting by the same artist just magically appeared years later, like a decade after that initial encounter. It's an astonishing example of how these deep desires, once really felt and held onto, can eventually materialize, sometimes in ways you could never predict.
That painting story connects so beautifully to the power of visualization. But there's a crucial distinction made in the sources. It's not just about visualizing the perfect outcome, like having the painting on the wall. It's also, maybe even more importantly, about visualizing yourself doing the hard steps needed to achieve your goals. Apparently, this activates the same regions in your brain as actually performing the action. So your subconscious isn't just some passive storage unit. It's viewed as an active co-creator. It's constantly working behind the scenes to manifest these deeply held desires, sometimes even years later. It conspires, in a way, to help you get what you want if you keep it on your brain's "this is important" list.
Wow, visualizing the hard steps too. That's key. And as you move through life, the sources talk about noticing mile markers. You might not see the whole map laid out in front of you yet. Maybe you never do completely, but you can often look back and see these mile markers, past events, challenges overcome, skills learned which help you clock your progress towards some unseen destination. Life is always teaching you something if you're willing to see it that way.
Mm-hmm. There's a very personal example shared in the sources involving a surprising encounter with a psychic medium, of all things. That encounter led to a huge leap of faith and the family's unexpected move to Vermont. It's framed as this powerful lesson in learning to trust that everything in your life is preparing you for something that hasn't happened yet. You may not be able to see how all the dots connect looking forward, but the belief is that they do connect, and you'll see it looking back.
Trusting the dots, I like that. Ultimately, the sources really reassert the importance of that daily commitment. Your job isn't necessarily to know the whole plan. Your job is simply to believe that what you want is possible, and to encourage yourself, maybe with that high five, to keep walking toward it. No matter what happens, keep believing and maybe try to give up your rigid timeline for when and how it all has to unfold.
Because the destination might not even be what you originally envisioned, right?
Exactly. But the journey of building that self-belief, that's presented as the true purpose. So let's just quickly recap these core daily habits from our deep dive today. First, wake up when the alarm rings. Don't hit snooze. And crucially, do not look at your phone first thing. Put yourself first from the moment you wake up. Second, take a moment to center yourself. Place your hand on your heart and repeat, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. Say it as many times as you need to feel that shift, to soothe your nervous system. Third, make your bed. Such a simple thing, but it's a small win that sets a positive, orderly tone for your day, creates immediate accomplishment, and finally, head straight to the bathroom mirror, look yourself in the eye, and give yourself that high five. No words needed unless you want them.
And remember, these small, seemingly minor, consistent actions really work together to retrain your body's response to stress and build that inner trust. They allow you to truly trust every last tool we've discussed today. They foster self-acceptance, resilience, and that deep foundational sense of self-worth. And perhaps the purpose of your dreams isn't just achieving the destination itself, but discovering the self-belief and the strength you forge along the way.
And as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this final provocative thought we took from the material. The true art might just be believing that this moment, right now, the one you're in, is actually a dot that is connecting you to something amazing that's coming in your future, even if you can't see it yet.
Trust in yourself. Trust your ability to rise to whatever challenges come your way. Cheer yourself forward, especially when it's hard. And please, take care of yourself along the way.
And every single morning as you stand there face to face with yourself in the mirror, just take a moment. Maybe smile. Know that at some point in this beautiful, messy life of yours, it probably will all make perfect, maybe even magical sense looking back. And as you raise your hand to meet your reflection, without needing to utter a single word, just silently say, I believe in you, I love you. Now keep going, because something amazing is definitely coming.